say that 2020 was a weird year for restaurants and hospitality would be the understatement of the decade. A nuclear bomb decimated a large portion of our industry, forcing thousands of independent restaurants and small businesses to shut their doors, while leaving hundreds of thousands of people unemployed. Lives were lost, livelihoods were lost, existential crises were had. If you're listening to this, congratulations on making it to level 2021. If you're new here, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. It helps us reach more people and motivates us to continue making content like this in the future. Before we get into what the future likely holds, take a moment and just remember that despite everything, you're alive. You're tough as nails. You wouldn't be in this industry if you weren't. And no matter what happens, we will get through this. Take a deep breath. Roll your shoulders back. Unclench your jaw. Soften the muscles between your eyes. Take another deep breath. Drink a glass of water. Stretch your body. Get comfortable. For the last few years, we've been closely following the restaurant world, tracking trends from the big food media outlets, social media accounts and viral shares, industry forums, Facebook, Reddit, Quora, Instagram, and more. We've made a lot of notes on patterns we've noticed, food and industry trends with staying power, and frequently debated hot topics, and have come up with a list of recurring themes and future projections that we'd like to share today. 2021 Restaurant Industry Predictions. Top 7 overall themes. Number 1, resiliency. Resiliency is the ability to overcome challenges of all kinds, trauma, tragedy, personal crises, everyday life problems, and bounce back stronger, wiser, and more personally powerful. 2020 was the restaurant industry's sink or swim moment, as shitty and uncomfortable as it has been for all of us. Businesses and workers alike have been forced to pivot and adapt in this period of forced change. In 2021, waiting for help is no longer an option. It has become abundantly clear that we must give up on the idea of government assistance. If we want to continue in this industry, we must learn to save ourselves. What happened was not our fault, but our recovery is our responsibility. Both businesses and individuals must conquer their fear of change, while accepting and adapting to the new normal. We must surrender to the chaos and likely go back to the drawing board. Think of this year as a chopped mystery basket of rules and regulations. What will you make out of it all? This year, the focus will be on collectively defining the future we want to embrace and working together to create something new. Number 2, upheaval. This year will be the year of destruction. We will see a massive purging and dismantling of what hasn't worked in this industry for a long time. The restaurant industry's shadows will come to the surface. Scandals will ripple through the industry, especially in regards to underpayment or mistreatment of workers or misappropriation of relief funds, and it likely won't be fun for a lot of the bigger names in the business. If we look critically, this really began in 2017 with the Me Too movement. The industry has been on the verge of a reckoning for decades now, and the younger generation is not going to tolerate a lot of the abusive cultural norms that many of us have endured throughout our careers. Number 3, sovereignty. Sovereignty is the full right and power of a governing body over itself, without any interference from outside sources or bodies. This will apply to both businesses and individuals in 2021 as everyone works towards finding ways to reduce our reliance on outside sources. For businesses, sovereignty looks like rooftop or parking lot gardens to prevent supply chain issues, solar panels or renewables to reduce utility bills, zero waste initiatives, connecting with the local supply chain and distancing from price gouging mega suppliers like Cisco and GFS, anything that pushes a business towards being more off-grid and self-reliant. For individuals, sovereignty looks like self-employment. This is one of the biggest trends we see happening in 2021. The demand for personal chefs will skyrocket as consumers view it as a safer alternative than packed restaurants. Many chefs, especially those under 40, will be seeking ways to free themselves from wage slavery and the uncertainty of restaurant work while prioritizing work-life balance. In-home dining will be a fast-growing niche that will lead to a huge paradigm shift in the industry. Number 4, social and environmental responsibility. The takeout revolution is here to stay, at least for a while. Many are worried about the environmental impact of all of the extra packaging waste, though. 2021 will bring a lot of innovation in packaging and green initiatives, whether that means compostable or recyclable containers, packaging deposits on reusable containers, similar to the concept of beer growlers, bring it back and get a discount on the next order, or possibly even edible packaging for the most adventurous places. Number 5, prioritizing self-care and mental health. There's been a huge shift in the last year of chefs who are finally speaking out about the elephant in the kitchen, the fact that most of us are struggling hard with our mental health. Restaurant-specific online support groups have seen a dramatic increase in growth, and workers are beginning to realize that it's not sustainable to work 100 hours a week for decades. With the pandemic, employers have finally been forced to give their staff time off if they've contracted or been exposed to COVID-19. Now that we all know that this is possible, we don't expect it to go back to the way it used to be. Number 6, financial diversification. After the instability and chaos of 2020, 2021 will be the year of the side hustle. Both businesses and individuals will, and should, prioritize diversifying their income instead of putting all of their eggs in one basket, in case of surprises, closures, or new regulations. For businesses, this might look like selling sauces, dips, and side dishes in a market setting, repurposing unused indoor dining space, renting out their kitchen to other businesses during the days or off days or slow periods, partnering with local farms to do outdoor dinners, setting up a booth at a local farmer's market with limited menu options, etc. For chefs, this might look like starting a spice or sauce brand, selling a consumable product like breads, cupcakes, or something like that, doing occasional private parties, freelancing with multiple catering companies, teaching classes, specializing in a niche, writing a book, doing meal prep or delivery for private clients, etc. Number 7, going with the flow and embracing rapid change. For a long time, our industry prided itself on its ability to stick to tradition. There is a time and place for this, but 2021 is neither of those. Fixed, rigid mindsets about the way it's always been will not fare well in the near future. The most successful chefs and businesses in this period will be the ones who keep one eye looking towards the future, the ones who see the swell begin to rise, adjust their sails, and ride the wave. It's likely that a majority of us in this business will be forced to either change jobs, temporarily switch industries. Side note, check out our giant list of ways to transition into another industry, link in the comments below, or rework our business plans, rewrite menus, and adjust recipes as supply and demand fluctuates, or move to a new location altogether. Release the need to be attached to a particular outcome. Chances are it's not going to go the way you expect anyway. Be open to the unknown. Our best advice for this: spend some time doing a resiliency exercise and making a personal contingency plan. How to do a personal resiliency or contingency plan. Number 1, get a piece of paper and divide it into 4 columns. Number 2, begin to brainstorm. What are some of the worst possible things that could happen in your life, your career, or your business in the near future? Write down your top 5 to 10 in the first column. In the second column, write down the worst thing that could happen if the situation actually manifested. In column 3, write down the best case scenario. In column 4, write down a few things you can do to be proactive and prevent the worst from happening. Doing an exercise like this helps to reduce future anxiety. By planning for the worst, we are less likely to be paralyzed by fear or uncertainty if or when a crisis hits, because we have already thought about and planned for ways we can get ourselves out of that particular mess. It can be hard to think clearly when a crisis hits. This type of exercise gives us a direction to aim when we're feeling disoriented or lost. Really quickly, let's try this with a really common example. So in column 1, I lose my job could be your worst case scenario. Now, you want to think of the worst manifestation of that. What's that going to be? All right, so you're not going to have money, or your bills are going to be past due. You might get evicted, then you're going to be homeless, you're going to have rising debt, you're not going to be able to afford food, then your mental health is going to decline, etc., etc. Now, what's the best way that can manifest? 1, you have more free time. You're temporarily on unemployment. Then you have time to rest and exercise. You could also move to a cheaper area. So now, what preventative measures can you take to ensure that that doesn't happen? Well, you could update your resume or your LinkedIn profile to make yourself more attractive to potential employers. You could start building a side hustle now in case anything happens and you don't have income. At least you have your side hustle. You could get all of your documents that you might need for unemployment or SNAP benefits. You could try your best to stay positive, because staying positive will likely keep you hired longer at a place. And you could also start saving money now in case the worst does happen. You have a little bit of a fallback cushion to ease a little bit of your anxiety and take care of your basic needs. All right, let's talk about the rising industry trends to pay attention to in 2021. Number 1 would be functional nutrition, or healthy but tasty. As much as many chefs hate it, the plant-based trend is here to stay. More and more diners are focusing on their health and experimenting with flexitarian diets and reducing their meat consumption. Nutrition will become more important. Conscious diners are developing a growing interest in immune-boosting foods, adaptogens, and functional ingredients. And menus and chefs who understand and highlight this trend will be sought after. Number 2, ghost kitchens. These rental kitchens have been popping up like crazy in U.S. coastal cities and are gradually making their way inland. If you're not familiar with this concept, they're basically affordable, licensed community kitchens, rentable by the hour, day, week, or month by multiple brands at a time. Ghost kitchens are built in unused space, like shipping containers or former office space, parking lots, formerly abandoned shopping malls, etc. These virtual restaurants are perfect for online-only brands or as auxiliary brands for existing restaurants. One of the more interesting applications we've seen of this concept is something like this. An existing established restaurant with a cohesive theme, say a southern barbecue restaurant or food truck, takes its leftovers or surplus to a ghost kitchen and then creates an online-only offshoot doing fusion sandwiches and gourmet tacos, effectively doubling their revenue. There's a lot of possibility with this concept. They don't require much capital to begin, and the rental terms are often super flexible, making them fairly low risk as compared to brick and mortar operations. Please see our attached blog list for a ton of resources on this at the bottom. Number 3, simplification. A huge trend we've noticed has been the push for simplification. Recently, there's been less of a focus on opulence and luxury ingredients and more of a focus on comfort and nourishment. Childhood classics have dominated social media this year, from homemade breads to gourmet mac and cheese to braised short ribs and stews to simple stir fries with rice. Food is a potent emotional trigger, and meals that evoke simpler, happier times have predictably risen in popularity. We've noticed this in restaurant design too. Minimalism, farmhouse style, natural building materials, plants and living decor, and muted earth tones have dominated new spaces, and more ostentatious displays of luxury have begun to take a back seat. Number 4, retrofuturism. On the other end of the spectrum, food has quietly been taking a more science fiction-y turn. Neon and holographic colors, textural contrasts, geometric shapes, bold flavor pairings, and more cosmically inspired dishes have seen a sharp rise in recent popularity. Retrofuturism incorporates food, art, culture, and science in new and innovative ways. Think of it as the food of the future as conceptualized by the people of the past. Unlike the molecular gastronomy trend of the late 2000s, the let's make it crazy because we can mentality, retrofuturism is more intentional, socially conscious, and focuses on the sensory experience of the diner. Asian-inspired flavors and more delicate techniques tend to dominate this style, as do sustainable products and plant-based proteins. In terms of design, think LED lights, 80s graphics, neon signs, Tokyo-style community vending machines, color blocking, and clean, abstract lines. If Blade Runner, Stranger Things, and The Midnight Gospel combined their aesthetic, they'd nail this vibe completely. We also love this, if you haven't noticed. Number 5, return to our roots. For many chefs, this will be the year that they stop experimenting with fusion and global cuisine and begin to truly explore their family's cultural heritage. Due to the worldwide travel bans, many will be seeking to travel with their palates instead. A rise in specialized, underrepresented regional delivery pop-ups is expected. Think Irish, Scottish, and Northern European comfort foods, traditional Balkan cuisine, regional American, like Northeastern or Midwestern food, Nigerian, Afghani, etc. Refined grandma cuisine will be a major player this year. Number 6, rise of POC and indigenous chefs and cuisines. With the current political climate in the West, we predict that 2021 will bring a welcome elevation of BIPOC chefs and the foods that shape their cultures. Soul food, storytelling, less refined foods, pre-colonialism, foraging, and living off the land have all been trending recently, and we anticipate the momentum to continue. Pro tip, don't try to capitalize off of this if it's not your culture. Step aside and let the marginalized communities tell their own stories through food. If you want to incorporate foods from these communities into your own restaurant, hire marginalized folks, let them teach you, and give them credit for their contributions. Chefs to watch. Rich Francis. Why we love him. Rich went from fine dining in Top Chef Canada to being a champion of modern Indigenous cuisine. His feed is full of beautiful outdoor shots of foraged and wild game food porn, as well as a ton of information about First Nations people, culture, and food sovereignty. He is highly inspirational and makes you think about things that most chefs stay silent on, like how colonialization has messed up the diets and culture of Indigenous populations. He's also an author and host of Red Chef Revival. Another chef to watch, Clancy Miller. Why we love her. Clancy is the author of Cooking Solo and founder of For the Culture, a magazine celebrating Black women in food and wine. Instead of endless self-promotion, she uses her platform to highlight the success of others, something that the food world definitely needs more of. She's also not afraid to discuss the intersectionality of food, politics, and culture in a compassionate, inspiring way. Her positivity shines through, and she is a joy to follow. Number 7, hyper-local. One trend that thrives on social media, yet interestingly hasn't gotten much media attention in the last year, is what we're going to call doomsday gourmet. When spring hit, there was a huge uptick in people who are curious about what grows in their local area and how to utilize it. Maybe it's the low-key pending apocalypse vibes that 2020 threw at us, but edible wild and native plants, things like dandelion, nettle, loquat, purslane, foraged mushrooms, acorns, and wild berries, are piquing dinner curiosity like never before. Chefs to watch, Alan Burgo. Why we love him. Alan is a chef who specializes in foraged mushrooms, wild plants, and offal. He's the author of The Forager Chef's Book of Flora and host of The Wild Harvest, a beautifully shot how-to that covers everything from harvesting to cooking wild ingredients. His food is super unique, and the way he uses ingredients that are unfamiliar to most never fails to inspire. He's definitely someone we would want on our apocalypse team. Number 8, Zero Waste Initiatives. It's no secret that the food industry has a horrifying problem with food waste. Enough food gets thrown out in the US alone to feed several countries every year, and people are finally starting to do something about it. Zero waste is the ultimate form of creativity for the chef who loves a challenge. Can you force yourself to think outside of the box, plan ahead, and use ingredients that most throw out without a second thought? This year in particular, zero waste initiatives are incredibly smart to adapt for our industry. It's an easy way to increase those razor-thin profit margins while also helping to save the planet. Chefs to watch, Wojtek Vej. Check out our podcast interview with him in our channel. Why we love him. Wojtek takes zero waste to another level entirely as a plant-based zero-waste chef, author, and consultant. He opened the first zero-waste vegan restaurant in the world in Cambodia and is passionate about teaching chefs and businesses how to reduce their food waste. His new book, Surplus, The Chef's Guide to Food Waste, is the book the food industry has needed for decades. Written for chefs by chefs, Wojtek teaches us how to cook food without waste, shares his insights into running a kitchen without a bin, it's possible, walks us through zero-waste menu planning and development of new plant-based dishes, and teaches many ways to save costs by reducing your food waste. The methods and steps described in the book can be applied in every professional kitchen, whether it's a small bistro or a large restaurant. Number 9, creative workarounds. Dine-in and table service might be canceled for the foreseeable future, but that doesn't mean the only option is takeout. For example, a resurgence in 50s car hop style service is likely. In this model, groups are discouraged, the average car only seats 4 to 6, diners are self-contained in their own vehicle, food can be safely enjoyed on-premise, and the experience is both novel for the younger crowd and nostalgic to older generations. Number 10, alternative protein sources. In the Western world, at least, there's been a huge movement towards non-traditional protein sources. Mycoprotein, insect protein, and nut proteins in particular have been steadily on the rise for the last few years. Expect this trend to continue. This sector is going through a lot of exciting, interesting innovation right now. Number 11, collaborative hospitality groups. Expect the barter economy to grow this year, especially as supply chains get shorter. Restaurant cooperatives have been slowly popping up around the country, combining resources to help each other stay open and cut bigger expenses by sharing dumpsters or cleaning costs, splitting bulk orders from local farmers and artisans, sharing delivery drivers, offering combo orders from multiple places, starting a community garden or hydroponic grow system in unused dining or parking space, hosting online classes or how-tos with other chefs, taking turns shopping for each other, etc. In an environment as uncertain as this, collaboration is the key to success. Number 12, cultivating diner trust. Transparency in ingredients, truth in labeling, and integrity are growing trends with the younger diners, and younger diners make up a large portion of the delivery market. Food fraud is also a current hot topic. From fake honey to diluted olive oil, consumers are getting smarter and asking more questions. Clean ingredients, free from pesticides, hormones, antibiotics, artificial colors, preservatives, and unnecessary processing, have risen higher in search results recently, and many restaurants have reported an increase in diner inquiries into the specifics of the products being used. To get ahead of this, train your staff to understand your purchasing. Where are your ingredients sourced? Why did you choose those suppliers, and what makes them special? Knowing your why will be one of the most important things to master this year. Number 13, koji and modern fermentation. Koji, Aspergillus oryzae, aka the mold that makes soy sauce, sake, tempeh, and miso, is experiencing a modern renaissance. The enzymes present in this particular strain of mold allow chefs to rapid cure and tenderize meats and vegetables, achieving the effects of a weeks-long dry aging process in as few as 3 days. Designer miso is on the rise, as well as koji-infused amino sauces, pastes, and marinades. As a follow-up to the sourdough mania we saw in 2020, we expect diners to broaden their fermentation knowledge this year. Gut-healing foods, especially pre- and probiotics, have been popping up everywhere lately. With homeschooling on the rise, science lessons are turning more and more edible. As a result, 2021 might be the year of sauerkraut's return. Chefs to watch? Jeremy Umansky. Why we love him? Jeremy is basically the Willy Wonka of mold and fermentation. Owner of Lauder Delicatessen and Bakery, licensed wild mushroom expert and author of Koji Alchemy, as well as a recovered addict who often uses his voice to shed light on these issues in our industry, his food is truly unlike anything else out there. His feed is littered with mold spores growing on just about everything, from whole turkeys to cubes of fat to mac and cheese, and the results are in a category of their own. Jeremy is not afraid to let his nerdiness shine through, walking us through the details of his thought process and explaining why an experiment worked or didn't. He is consistently innovating, pushing boundaries, and forcing us to redefine how we think about fermentation, and we are always inspired by him. Number 14, online classes. With everyone cooped up inside, many people are realizing that they have no idea how to cook. Smart chefs are using this to their advantage. Some are growing their social media following with easy hacks and tutorials. Others are using their downtime to create an online class that will turn into passive income stream. And some are doing live classes via Zoom. Whichever route you take, consumers are hungry for knowledge and willing to pay, in both money and attention. Provide value, and you will be rewarded. Number 15, seaweed. It's not just for sushi anymore. Seaweed is gaining popularity in the food world for a variety of reasons. First, it's incredibly sustainable. Seaweeds are a highly renewable food resource, meaning they can be grown and harvested all year round in any marine environment. For any temperature, depth of water, or geographical location, there is a species of seaweed that can grow there. Production is low impact. Seaweeds need no chemicals, fertilizers, or pesticides. They require no deforestation or fresh water to grow. They don't deplete their own environment or minerals, as over-intensive farming on the soil does. They actively improve the quality of the water. And brown seaweeds actually fix the nitrogen content of their surrounding water, which is used as an environmentally friendly solution to nitrogen pollution from agricultural runoff. They contain an exceptional level of minerals like calcium, magnesium, iron, and iodine, proteins, dietary fiber, electrolytes, and vitamins, especially B12, which is hard to get on a plant-based diet, as well as being very low in calories, making them a very tasty way to nourish your mental and physical health. The micronutrients and electrolytes in seaweeds are bioavailable in a form that human cells need to mesh with their metabolisms. Perhaps most relevant to our industry, though, seaweed is delicious in all forms, highly versatile in preparation, vegan, vegetarian, and allergen-friendly, and often a novel food experience, especially for Western diners. What are your thoughts? What trends have you noticed recently? Please discuss your thoughts in the comments section or in our private Facebook group. If you're listening to this audio, please also check out our blog post linked below for a long list of related industry articles talking about many of the topics we have mentioned in this video. If you liked this video, please like, comment, subscribe to our channel, or share this with a friend or in an industry forum. The interaction helps us reach more people in the algorithm and motivates us to keep producing content like this. Thanks for listening.